Good morning and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy and I'll be hosting you for the next 3 hours. So get excited, get those questions and comments rolling in because I, of course, don't like talking to myself. I enjoy communicating with people and animals. Not that my dog responds, but anyways, if you are just watching for the first time, welcome. And if you're wondering how on earth do I ask you questions, Taylor, well, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is, if you're watching on YouTube, you can comment directly on the YouTube chat, or you can head over to the WildEarth website and pop your questions in the question box there. Whatever is easiest and most convenient for you. Of course, you're welcome to just sit very quietly and observe, but that's no fun for me. Otherwise, I've just got to tell all sorts of random stories and then you get sick of me, which I definitely don't want to do because I've still got a number of days before you're free of me. But we are at Oldonyo, which is in Kenya. It's sandwiched between Tsavo National Park and the Amboseli. And there is a lot of wildlife here this morning, which I'm not shocked about because every time we're at Oldonyo, there is always live streaming at this waterhole's edge. We've got the fringed-eared oryx, Maasai giraffe, and the common eland. And then, of course, the ground zebras all the way at the back with many insects racing past the camera too, and a few little birds. Nancy, good morning to you too. Lovely to hear from you. And thank you for saying hello. Now I know that at least one person is watching, which is very exciting stuff. Perhaps we can just have some private conversations today. But I have no doubt that a few more of you will jump on board and hopefully join us in a little bit. But while we wait for everybody to start chatting, I think what we will do is we'll just sit quietly for a moment. We've even got a Thompson's gazelle that's come to join in. We don't get to see them very often. Very nervously going down to drink. It's a little bit on the tricky side. That seems to be quite steep when you've got such a short neck. Perhaps it needs to copy the oryx and go down onto its knees. That would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? I think this camera is just so great for its perspective on how large the different animals are that come down to drink, especially the giraffe. How many Thompson's gazelles do you think stacked on top of one another would it take to reach the giraffe's belly? These are the things that I think about every single day. The most bizarre things normally. Catherine, good morning. You said that you're definitely going to have to add Oldonyo to your bucket list places to travel. Absolutely, you've got quite the long list as well. It's definitely high up on mine. I've said so many times that I would absolutely love to get there. And I spend so much time in Kenya. So I think what I actually need to do is after one of my safaris, when I'm in Kenya or guide training, I need to just stay another week maybe 2 weeks, because I've obviously got to go visit the beautiful Kenyan coastline. But then come and explore more of Tsavo National Park and also Amboseli, and then maybe Old Donyo. That'd be great just to pop in here for a couple of days. And if you have been watching the cameras in the evening, you also have seen anything interesting, let me know. There's so much wildlife around here at night time, from honey badgers to, I think there was serval seen here a little while ago, occasionally cheetah. Wouldn't it be a dream to catch one of those? I'd still like to see cheetah during the day. That would be amazing. I don't think the waterhole would be as busy then. None of these animals would particularly like to stick around, although maybe some of them. Maybe they'll just watch from a distance. The cheetah is unlikely to bring down something as large as an oryx, and one or two cheetahs trying to take down a zebra, an adult zebra, also pretty difficult. I think you need a couple more, and they would definitely, well, the giraffe will definitely be safe. Thompson's gazelle, well, you might be the unfortunate one there. Ooh, Lenny, you've asked if there are any topi here in the sort of the Tsavo, Amboseli, Old Donyo region. I actually don't know, to be honest. I haven't got a cooking clue. I'll have to read at the animal species list. Not from what I've seen around the waterhole. We do see a lot more topi though, or you can see, not least, you can see a lot more topi down in the Masai Mara, where they're one of the more common antelope species. But here I haven't actually seen any. And even around this water's edge, you see a lot of the oryx, and they don't necessarily need to drink every single day. Same thing goes with the eland, but they're here because there's water available. So if there were topi around here, perhaps it's just not the right environment, then I wonder why we wouldn't see them here. We still see impala coming down, of course. But to be fair, it's actually not a huge variety of antelope species. Eland, the oryx, the Thompson's gazelle. Bless you, if you ever snorted like that. And then the impala occasionally. But that's really it, unless I'm missing something. There's some other species that we've seen that come down. Let me ask the internet very quickly. I don't actually know if you would see them here. It's obviously quite arid in regions. Now it's particularly dry, but it does green up quite nicely if and when the rains do come. It's not too long now before the rains start, just a couple more months. And then it's going to be absolutely teeming with life, and we hopefully see lots of youngsters. You can see some of these oryx look very pregnant. Look at how they're all looking off to the right. Normally they're consistently staring to the left because of the lodges and the hide and everything like that. I wonder what's grabbed those giraffes' attention off to the right. And then the gemsbok keep popping their heads up and also looking in that direction. It could be nothing. Maybe a warthog popped out the bushes and gave everyone a fright, but it might be worth just keeping an eye out. GDH, you said it's so nice to hear my voice, but you really should be getting to bed. So you're wondering if I have an animal bedtime story for you. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I remember this one about the giraffe. I just had to think about it very quickly in my head. It's an astronomy story. So I suppose that's fitting, right? Um, for a giraffe. I just have to check one thing very quickly.
We love all the support. We read all the comments, and now we want to acknowledge our biggest fans. Do you know when Ribbon was seen last? Or the names of June's cubs? Do you remember the last time we were up close and personal with an elephant? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in for a treat. WildEarth's Fan of the Month. We are looking for you. For more details, make sure to read our monthly mailer and keep an eye out on our social media pages. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
My goodness, Judy H., I cannot remember this giraffe story for the life of me. And I put it down in a note that it has to do with the Maasai people. And the story was actually told to me. It was really fascinating. Sorry, because I have a memory of a goldfish, and not to degrade goldfish like that. Probably a Rice Krispie is a better way to put it. But one night that I was doing guide training in Kenya, I said to the team, I was like, have you heard many stories pertaining to astronomy and what the Maasai believe? And everyone was like, no, not really. It's not something that they've necessarily asked, or that, as they were growing up, really anyone was interested in talking about. So I said, would it be possible to maybe meet with some elders, obviously, who are the most highly respected individuals in the communities, um, and maybe sit down and chat to them and ask them. So one of the guides at this camp called Ishara, it was unbelievable. He said, okay, well, let's go and speak to my father and some of his friends who are also elders. And when I say that they're elders, they were in their 90s. And Bernard's dad was 98, if I'm not mistaken. And they told us a couple of different stories. They were so fascinated by a laser pointer, which I obviously brought with, and they loved using it because it's obviously quite difficult to point at the stars otherwise. And the story goes, but now I'm completely butchering it because I made notes and I just can't find them anymore. But essentially, the sun was not something that was reliable. The sun was a confused individual. Again, this is what the Maasai believe, and could quite often not do what it's supposed to do, could not complete its job, which was, of course, rising in the east and setting in the west. And because the giraffe are so important in Maasai culture, and they're also the tallest land mammal, one of the elders had put a giraffe, or not maybe one of the elders, maybe one of the gods, had put the giraffe as a very important player in making sure the sun did exactly what it did and stayed on course. So the giraffe would stand up nice and tall and watch the sun and as it rises from the east and keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't veer off and go anywhere else. And eventually watching and turning to the west as the sun then sets. So that was the story behind the giraffe, but I don't think I've given it as much credit as I should have. But I'll find those notes. I've actually got some really interesting astronomy information. A lot of it didn't quite make sense, honestly, but I suppose that's how these things go. Is They are wonderful stories that were believed in a different time. Kathy Lee, thank you for the encouraging words. You said you love listening to my stories and rambling on. Oh my goodness, I can just go on and on and on and on and on. It's always quite difficult. I mean, you know me, I'm so honest. We speak about so many things and we do see the same animals every single day. So it gets a bit tricky sometimes. Uh, but of course, the storytelling is quite nice. So many doves around. Maybe we can try and have a closer look at the water's edge, just to see if we can catch one of the animals coming down to drink a bit closer. Maybe if this eland sticks around, but there seems to be a lot of bird activity, so perhaps we can also have a look at some of the doves. Okay. Let's see if we can capture any of the birds. The doves just seem to be coming in so quickly. Oh, it looked like there was even a guinea fowl. Oh, there's a little butterfly. Is it a bird? Quite a few little butterflies fluttering about. I've had an explosion of moths all of a sudden. The rain must be coming soon in South Africa because otherwise it's a bit early. Or an insect boom, because there's not really much vegetation left at the moment. Now, of course, all the doves have flown away. There's just one there, but they camouflage so well, and with the color differences between how some of the mud has dried. Oh my gosh, did you see the spider hunting wasp? Sort of center of the screen. It's just going off to the left. You might be able to see a tiny little insect. But it's not tiny, it's just flown off like quite a large black thing. And that was around, whether it was having probably coming down to have a quick drink. Eland. Ryan, you've commented on how you enjoy the perspective of having a ground level camera. Absolutely. I mean, this is for every photographer's dream to be able to have such a close and low angle view of animals. You can see, look at the eland. Got so many veins in their faces. You see how they're all popping out at the moment. They're just all muscle, those eland. Oh, there, I actually, instead of saying eland or eland, I combined the two and created a / English Afrikaans word all in one. I kind of like this angle that we have at the moment. You can also see how big the hooves are of an eland. You can also see the little false hooves just behind the foot. But if you've ever seen an eland track before, it can be quite confusing, especially when there's also buffalo in the area. Their tracks look almost identical. Round. You can imagine when you're the size of an eland or a buffalo, though, your hooves are going to be quite round. Let's see. I'm just trying to think. Have I ever seen oryx tracks before? I think maybe when I trained as a guide on Amakala, I would have seen oryx tracks, but that was such a long time ago. Otherwise, I haven't particularly noticed them. And another thing we can keep an eye out for is the little agama lizards. I need to find my East African reptiles book. I've slowly started unpacking again because I've just recently moved. You can also see the water trickling out from the pipe, and then we'll be able to identify that species for sure. I wonder if I have it here. Well, must be in one of these boxes. I'll dig for it at some point. Kathy Lee, you said that you did see the spunter hiding wasp. That's not a word. Oh my god, a hyena! What are you doing here? You're not a spider hunting wasp. Sorry, I got very excited because I never thought we were actually going to see any predators here. How awesome. Very thirsty hyena. Look how no one even cares about it. Eland didn't even lift its head. No one seemed to be too perturbed. But one hyena on its own for such large animal species, not necessarily a threat. It looks very thirsty, this hyena. And this is a spotted hyena, in case you were wondering.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
This is insane how long this hyena has actually been drinking for. I don't know if you noticed when it first arrived, you can see how its hips are sticking out quite a bit. This could be a number of different things. Either this hyena is not in the greatest condition. It doesn't look too thin. I mean, the hair is quite fluffy, but quite often with animals, you'll see their hips sticking out when they are slightly dehydrated. Obviously, the most accurate way to test if they are dehydrated is to do either you pull the skin and see how quickly or slowly it goes back to being normal, or the capillary sort of test. But we won't be doing that on a hyena. Ryan and Sunshine, thank you for pointing that out. Sadly, I don't have a crystal clear view, but you said that there's quite a big wound underneath its chin. And just every now and then I can see it. It's just in the shadows. But before I try and guess what could have done something like this, let's see if it does lift its head up again. Oof, that's an unpleasant place to have a wound. So maybe this hyena has been injured for quite some time and actually just resting and trying to conserve energy. You know, when you're injured. Oh, now look as it turns even more. Look how badly. Actually, it's very malnourished. You can see the hip sticking out quite extensively now. Again, with having all that fluff on its body, it can be a bit tricky to see. And hyenas are not necessarily the most well-groomed either, so they can be a bit scruffy. Oh, no, this hyena doesn't look like it's in a great condition. Seems like it hasn't drank water for a very long time. So you can, yeah, oh, it's tricky to see. I don't know if it's just one hole, or if unfortunately it has been grabbed by maybe another predator and its teeth marks that have gone underneath the jaw. We saw that recently happened in the Sabi Sand, where it was on one of the live drives where a hyena was caught by a male lion. Survived, but still, with big canines like that, and with there being obviously lions in this area, you could definitely have something like that happen. You can just see it on the right quite prominently. If it turns, maybe we see if there's any other bite marks. Doesn't look like up on the head. It could also be something like maybe an abscess that has also formed under the chin, and that could have burst because it looks a bit. I don't know if it's just me. Does it look a bit pussy and gunky? If you do agree, let me know. I see some of you mentioning that there was a hyena that had a snare around it. Difficult to see if this is the case. Can't really see a snare now, but it might have been removed. But then you could potentially see some more damage elsewhere. Unless it doesn't look like the snare has gone through its mouth and then underneath its chin. But that can, of course, happen too. The idea for when snares are set up are not necessarily to catch predators, but to rather catch animal species. There you can see. I don't know if that's from a snare. Look at that. That's quite a big gunky hole. And look how pussy it is. I mean, the other thing is like maybe a warthog got it, and it's a tusk that has caused an injury like that. If there are any wildlife vets watching, though, please let us know what your thoughts are. There aren't too many other injuries that I can see other than it being completely emaciated. This is an interesting view now that you can just see how all the bones are sticking out. At least the hyena is coming to drink water. There's maybe some bite wounds on the back of the legs too. Oh, that's a big hole, a big slice. And of course we know if it's a male or female because we know how difficult it is to sex them. Peter Bell, you've said you don't think that this hyena looks too old. Are you saying that because of the shaggy hair, perhaps? I don't know. I think to me it looks like an adult. I think the only reason its hair is super shaggy like this is because it hasn't groomed itself maybe for quite some time, and it's just completely emaciated. So that's definitely going to change the look of a hyena. But to me it does look like an adult. Because as it sort of walked in, it didn't seem to be quite small. Yeah, maybe go and have a sit down in the water. Perhaps you'll feel a little bit better. Has obviously not drank water for a very long time. It'll be interesting to see what happens though with a wound like this. Because it's going to be able to heal on its own. It looked like quite a deep slash though. It seems to be drinking water okay. And they're so tough. So much tougher than us. We'd have to be, resting in bed if this was a wound on a human. But they just carry on. Obviously, it's quite difficult, though, to find things to eat. Catherine, that's an interesting thing to think about. You said you wonder if the animals don't look at this hyena as a threat because of the condition that it is. Potentially, but also just one hyena on its own, quite often will wander around groups of animals. And like I was saying, a single hyena with an adult zebra and eland and oryx and giraffe they're not going to be too perturbed by it. Of course, hyenas are magnificent hunters, and in big clans they can bring down really large prey. I mean, I've watched them hunting hippo, I've watched them successfully bringing down fully grown buffalo. But this is, of course, more than one individual. Hyenas are, as individuals, obviously masters of scavenging, and that's what I think this one needs to do, is focusing on maybe trying to find something to scavenge on. But of course, they kill lots of antelope species pretty easy. So, like something like a Thompson's gazelle or an impala is really no match for one hyena, and they'll be more than capable to bring those prey species down. But it's going to be quite tricky. You can see completely emaciated. It's lost so much muscle, and it probably doesn't have a lot of energy. But even though it is emaciated, I don't know if you all agree with me. Did you look at its belly? Its belly looks like it's not completely empty. So maybe it's just recently found something and able to scavenge, and now it's coming down for a drink. But to recover from something like this, it's going to need to consistently eat. Because if it becomes weaker and weaker, how is that body going to fight off an infection or even be able to start healing that wound if there's nothing really left of you? But they're tough, like I said, and are able to overcome many things. So I don't want to say that it's probably going to die, because I've seen animals in worse conditions coming back. I doubt the authorities, like maybe the Kenyan Wildlife Services, that's those types of initiatives will come out to tend to this hyena. Sometimes they do. But they might let it do its own thing. Oh, Giant Bunny, thank you so much for this information. This is so helpful. You've said that this hyena has actually been visiting this waterhole for several months with the same wound. It's obviously struggling to heal, maybe because of the position that it's at underneath the jaw, and the top part of the jaw is fused to the skull. So that, you know, they're obviously opening their bottom jaws. Let's see. And perhaps that's just not helping. Quite curious to see how deep it goes, because there's really not much from where that wound is, I suppose, where the teeth start growing, if that kind of makes sense. If you obviously put your hand just underneath your chin and run it down towards where your jugular is, there's nothing there. So I don't know how deep it is, but it looks like a very clean wound. I don't know if it's just muscle that's torn open. I'll try and have a closer view again. Obviously, it's a bit gruesome, I know. See, this hyena to me doesn't look young. It looks like an older individual. Just even looking at its face. Kathy Lee, you're 100% correct. You said that, there isn't water that's coming out from the wound, so it doesn't go all the way through. But it's a decent slice through the muscle. And with the constant moving around, as you know, it's difficult then for wounds to start healing. There's no scab that's going to be able to form, because the constant movement's just going to keep tearing it apart. But the fact that it's been around, though, for several months, Giant Bunny, can you comment, though, has its condition worsened in terms of its muscle tone, or has it kind of stayed the same? It doesn't look super thin in terms of its belly, so I think it must have had a meal. Bye, hyena. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, and we wish you luck. As it goes. Okie dokie. Thank you, hyena, for that. Let's take a break from Daniel. Let's go across to Jamala and see what wonderful wildlife we have there. So here we are in Madikwe Game Reserve with the Jamala camera with dinosaurs screeching in the background. No, of course, it's just the drawers. There's some renovations happening, and all the chukma baboons are coming down to have a drink. What I do want to have a look at when we get a chance is if we can pan across to the left I want to just check that zebra carcass out. If you weren't with us yesterday, we had quite an interesting sighting of warthogs feasting upon a zebra carcass, and we know baboons, are not afraid to do that. Sure, wildebeest, what are you doing? I don't know if it intentionally charged at the baboons. It just looked like a younger one. See if any of those baboons show any interest in the carcass. There's just a couple of them moving back behind the tree. To be honest, I haven't actually ever seen a baboon going to a carcass and then pulling off meat from it, if that kind of makes sense, scavenging from it. But it's not to say that that couldn't happen after we watched warthogs devouring huge chunks of flesh. It doesn't look like too much more has actually come to feed on it. Just the hindquarters, but nothing around the neck. Fascinating. We'll keep an eye on that though. Perhaps we can head back across to the baboons. I thought we might see an interesting interaction. Wildebeest occasionally staring at the carcass though. Hi, Bobos, with your babies on their backs. There are so many baboons in this troop. And of course, their size can vary from just a couple of individuals to large groups like this. I don't even know where to start in terms of how many individuals are here. There's so many, lots of youngsters too, which is good to see. But baboons can kind of breed all year round. They don't typically have a season. And it just goes to show, though, how many mature individuals are actually in this troop because of all the babies, because they only reach sexual maturity at about 5 years old. They have a very, very short reproductive cycle. That the gestation is a little bit longer, about 6 months or so. Little ones don't get stuck in the water. It's also going to become tricky for the baboons now. They're going to have to venture further out into the mud to catch a drink.
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
Apologies for all of the drilling sounds. Sadly, that's just one of the things we have to deal with. Nice to see again so many different animals all interacting. There must be like 30 or 40 baboons in this troop at least, if not even more. I've just been watching them, and like the more and more you look, the more you see popping out from behind the bushes. And they do tend to favor this area. We've consistently seen baboons here, especially over probably like the last week, the last 10 days. Still not sure if it's the same troop. It could potentially be. Most of them are rummaging just next to the zebra through vegetation, whatever's left. I truly do enjoy watching the baboons. It's just their social structures. Like for me, it's like elephants, and I suppose hyenas as well. There's so much going on between members of the troops or herds or clans, whichever species you're referring to. What's zebra doing? Zebras can also be like the elephants and tend to chase other animals away. Where that individual was sort of walking with a bit of determination towards the baboons, I thought that that was going to actually happen. Wait, yeah, I would be very careful of a big male baboon. He was stubborn. He wasn't moving. It does look like zebra is trying to herd them out of the way. Mr. H, thank you for your valuable input. You actually said that last night there were some brown hyenas that were feeding at that carcass. They didn't put much of a dent into it. I can't believe that there's still so much of the carcass left. I thought they would have already started eating around the neck and the shoulders, but that doesn't seem to be the case. If they're savoring their meal, not wanting to devour it all in one go. But surely a carcass to a hyena is a block of chocolate or a slab of chocolate to humans. Once you open it, you can't stop. I don't know if anyone else has that problem. And that is why there is no chocolates in my house. Otherwise, I will eat them all. Oh, no, I lie. I do have some. I might have to go and get one just now. Good old Ferrero Rochers. Ooh. I don't know what's got into these animals. One wildebeest that seems to be chasing everybody around. Also a zebra that's not too impressed with the baboons. All a bit frustrated. Maybe we can follow that warthog that's just walking off to the left. Are you going to come down to have a drink, or are you also going to head to the carcass? I'm sure you've noticed just how busy this waterhole has become over the last few weeks. Are you going to Mud Wallow? Seems to be showing some interest, and down below, maybe just finding the perfect spot to enter. Yes, that looks a bit more manageable. And in we go, just to have a drink for the moment. Gosh, everybody is so thirsty. Where I live, I've been seeing a lot of warthogs with some very pregnant sows. So I think we're going to see piglets soon. Solomon, actually, another great question you've asked. Have I ever seen baboons hunting warthogs? Well, do I have a story for you? I've never seen baboons hunting an adult warthog. I think that would be quite dangerous. Warthogs are so tough. They've armed with thick skin and, of course, those dangerous tusks. Um, and if warthogs can shake off sometimes lions and fairly often leopards, I think it would be quite tricky for the baboons. However, up in the Zambezi National Park in Zambia, I was sitting one day watching I was watching a warthog with her piglets, and they were tiny, tiny, tiny. It was just before the rains arrived. And I was sitting watching them, and I was a little bit of a distance away. I'd even had my camera down, just enjoying it. And there was a small bush not too far away from where the female was feeding. And the next minute, all chaos erupted as two adult male baboons charged from that bush and ran towards the warthog sow. As you can imagine, with that chaos, every warthog, well, the female warthog, sorry, and all the piglets disappeared in different directions. And both male baboons managed to grab a piglet each, and then they ate it. So at this time of the year, things start to really dry out, as we saw yesterday with the warthogs. For those animals that are omnivores, they're going to take the opportunity to sort of feast on meat, or protein. With the warthogs, though, it's highly unlikely that they're going to go and hunt something. I'm too scared to say never, because I like to prove you wrong. But baboons are, in fact, exceptional hunters. Not something that they do all year round, but I've seen it. I've seen it quite frequently, from impala lambs to, like I said, warthog piglets, to catching doves that are walking close by, and to a daker once in the Sabi sand. So there's real no discrimination from what a baboon won't eat. But again, it's all about being opportunistic. They don't have food or served on a platter. They've really got to make an effort to find it. And obviously it's easier for herbivores, like for the most part, that warthogs are, but they still have to travel quite large distances to find more palatable vegetation. Not so much in summer, but definitely during this time of the year. Hello, second warthog. Oh, it looks a bit scruffy. You can see how it had its mane up slightly. Maybe we can just have a little bit of a look to the left, see where that other warthog is going. It did seem like it was going to come down to have a drink. Hello. There it is. So manes are interesting things to have. So some animals, of course, it makes them look bigger, and with warthogs, they can do something called piloerection, where they can contract the muscles and the hair will then stand up, and which is obviously a great kind of defense, especially from a slight distance. We know that big male lions have got manes to signal, I suppose, sexual reproductiveness. I can't English. I don't know why I can't find the words today. But obviously, individuals, especially lions with rather large manes, and if they're darker, have been proven that the females tend to prefer them. Zebras have got interesting manes too. I don't quite know the exact function, maybe to protect the top of the neck, because the mane is quite bristly. But then there are other animals like a giraffe, for an example, that I'm sure it's just part of evolutionary leftover, where the function of the mane, it might have been used many, 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 many years ago, like hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago, but has now lost its function completely, but doesn't really require much energy to produce. So I think we're starting to see that with a lot of animals. I think another good example of like sort of there's lots of different things for evolutionary leftovers, like the vestigial digits on snakes, which is quite cool. You can sometimes see that. But with the Thompson's gazelle that we saw at El Doño, you can see the females. They almost don't have horns, and they're so brittle that I suspect probably in a few 100,000 years that they won't even produce horns at all. The males, of course, have got lovely strong horns.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search hashtag WildEarth Fan of the Month and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily. If any of you have ever been bitten by a horse or even a pony, you'll know how painful that bite is. Especially the way the zebra's teeth are angled. It pinches so hard. And if they get the right spot and pull back hard enough, they could definitely tear the flesh too.
I also don't know how zebras don't have more broken jaws, especially the way they kick at each other. Yesterday we had a great example of it, of one zebra that was in the pan at El Doño, was just violently kicking away. From this distance with the two on the left, I'm trying to see if it's two mares or a stallion and a mare. You can see a stallion on the right at the back. And the rest kind of look like mares from what I can see. Maybe it was just two mares having a bit of a squabble. And a couple of kudu coming down to have a drink too. This looks like just the one, but there were a few on the other side. Steve from the UK. So this waterhole does have a pump and it is filled. I just am not sure how often they're filling it, what the pump situation is like. You know, is it something that's on an automated system that it only adds water for a few hours a day, or does it have to like manually be switched on? That I'm uncertain of. So I think what would have happened here as well, I'm sure they dug it out a little bit, that this maybe started off as a natural pan that collected water, and that more and more animals just rolled around in it and are continuously altering the shape of it. But it looks a lot more natural than some of the other dams and water holes. Well, not a dam, a water hole is a better word, or natural pans. I suspect that that's what happened here. Also, it looks like it's in a natural depression, so the water runoff from the slopes is going to pool in this area regardless. Quite a few little birds also going down for a quick drink. I did see one blacksmith lapwing, but I think the others two that flew were starlings. Just see a few of them at the base, but they look quite teeny tiny. Okay, let's pop back to Aldonio. It seems as though it's the giraffe turn. Here we are. Isn't the sound of the giraffe, not giraffe? I thought I said that. Zebra is so wonderful. We know giraffe can't make too many noises because of the underdeveloped vocal cords that they have. Probably again we can have a closer view of some of these individuals drinking. It's nice to have a close-up every now and then. And this is the best camera for it. Oh gosh, the giraffe on the right has got such little ossicones. They're tiny, short. I don't know what's going on with a zebra too. Seems to be something that's happening in the tree line. It could just be another herd approaching to have a drink too. Melanie from Tasmania. This is a question that we actually get quite often about the digestive systems of various animals, but you're specifically wondering if giraffe have got one stomach or do they have more than one. So giraffe do have one stomach. They're what we call ruminants. So one of the most highly effective digestive systems that you can have. So it's one stomach with 4 chambers inside it, and each one of those chambers play a specific role in digesting the vegetable matter that they're consuming. So obviously once they eat the vegetation, they chew it and it pops down into the first chamber, and from that process the bolus of partially digested food actually gets what is wrong with me? Regurgitated. There's the word I'm looking for. And then they'll chew it again. We might be able to see that. And then once that happens and it's swallowed, then it goes down for further digestion. So it's the same thing with cows. Obviously, zebra is slightly different. They've got a very simple digestive system. That's why they always look so bloated. But any animals that are ruminants will have those 4 chambers within the one stomach. Sometimes you hear people talking about 4 stomachs, but that's not the case. But it's easy to understand why that mistake can be made. Just astounding as to other than the hyena that we saw earlier, how in good shape all these animals are. None of them look thin. They just all look so fat and healthy. What are you doing, James? Oh, Oryx? Are you smelling something? Are you trying to look up at the giraffe?
Discover the wonders of the wild with Safari Snaps, Africam's fun community game. While enjoying the live streams, simply tag the animal you spot. Each tag earns you points based on the rarity of the species. The rarer, the more points you score. Your profile and the Safari Snaps leaderboard will keep track of your impressive tagging skills. Join us on Safari Snaps and let's celebrate the wonders of African wildlife together.
That was crazy. It was just an oryx, in case you missed it, that actually charged and flicked its horns at a giraffe, which I have never seen before. Especially there's so much space around the water's edge at the moment. I have seen giraffe run away from lions, as you can imagine. I haven't seen too many interactions with giraffe and other animals where it's been, particularly aggressive towards a giraffe. So that was quite fascinating. I did also say yesterday that oryx and a couple of other antelope, gazelle, are known for being quite aggressive, but normally amongst their own species. But that was fascinating. Maybe we'll see if it happens again. But it was just the one individual which I've now lost track of that just seemed to be a bit on the grumpy side. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Are you going to do it again? I think it is that one on the left. Poor giraffe just trying to mind its own business and have a drink. No peace and quiet. Of course, these animals could just be getting more and more desperate now. My goodness, look at all of the zebra now coming in. The oryx do try to look up at the giraffe, but they've obviously got quite short necks and long horns. They're not able to tilt their heads up like that, not at least to make proper eye contact, where it's completely different on the giraffe. With obviously their height advantage and the position of their eyes being placed on their heads, they've got great peripheral view, and you can obviously imagine when you're that tall, you need to have good peripheral view so you can see what's going on in front of you, but also kind of down at your feet without having to stare at them every time you take a step. I didn't even take note to see if that oryx that charged at the giraffe, if it was a male or a female. I should have probably focused. So Nina, you actually asked quite an interesting question. So I was just hoping that you catch the oryx headbutting the giraffe, or trying to, not quite headbutting it, but you know what I mean. You've asked, are there any myths about wildlife that I'd like to debunk? I suppose there's so many. Plenty of them that we can kind of talk about. Shall we start with the hyena? I think that's probably one of the most famous ones that has many, many myths about it. So just because we saw the hyena earlier, we might as well tell it. So obviously the main one being hyenages. Why do I say these things? Please tell me there are other people out in the world that do this. And I only seem to do them when I'm live or I'm trying to have a very important professional conversation with somebody. Then it drives me insane. I look like a complete fool. But anyways, so hyenas just being purely scavengers and not being able to hunt themselves, when in fact hyenas and wild dogs are the most successful hunters, far more successful than the cats. What's another one? That hyenas are hermaphrodites, which is not the case. Obviously, you have two different sexes. You have males and you have females. But the thing that confused people a very long time ago is the fact that a female has a pseudo penis. So their genitals look almost identical to males. They even have fatty deposits, which look like the testes or the scrotum. So those are probably the two about hyenas that are most commonly, or that the hyenas are dogs, or that hyenas are cats. You hear that quite a bit when they're in fact in their own family entirely. Male lions don't hunt, but they just stay with the prides of lions and are able and will just kind of wait for them to hunt something. They are so effective. And for a good period of time, especially once male lions have dispersed from their natal prides, they live on their own, so they have to be effective hunters. It's just a bit more difficult for them, depending on their environment. Big male lion trying to stalk in short grass would be quite tricky if you've got a big mane, whereas lionesses are a bit more streamlined, and obviously without that mane, they can sit right on the ground and not even be noticed. What's another one? Porcupine shooting quills. That's probably one of my favorites. Imagine if they did shoot quills, though. Goodness gracious, would not get any. Not that I get close to porcupines, anyways. They're so shy. Maybe cheetahs? What's that one? Having retractable claws, which is not correct. They've got protractile claws, so, semi-protractile, shall I say that, because their claws are not completely out. They can pull them back a little bit, but not like with lions and leopards, for an example, where if they want to show their claws, they actually have to physically push them out, which is protractile. So it's the same thing with cheetah. You'll see that they sit out a little bit, but then they can push them forward a bit more when they need to. In fact, I always use Wolverine as the example. Everyone talks about him having protractile claws, but that's again not the case, because at rest they are hidden. So those tendons are pulling back, and he has to force them out, those big claws. Look at that zebra with a huge wound on its backside there. Yowza. Now I look at that. That does not look like a predator has done that. That actually looks like potentially a kick that has lifted the skin. Yeah, that's quite a big wound, but because of the roughness and the jagged edging on zebras' hooves, because they don't have a farrier to come out and rasp and file them down, that could quite easily cause that. And zebras don't have the thickest skin either. And then again, bites. A lot of injuries that we see on zebra are in fact just from other zebra. And you'll know that if you've ever seen two stallions fighting, or look at the commotion going on here. Got such powerful hindquarters. From what we have seen with lions specifically attacking zebras and leopard, I'll tell you the story about the leopard and the zebra just now, is that you'll see sort of more claw marks and long, deep scratches, which can of course separate the flesh, but not quite in a circular motion like that. I think I've told this story, but a very long time ago, when I Tamba is a young male leopard. It was Tandi's son, and he killed a kudu on his own. I can't remember how old he was, but that was quite spectacular. He was still quite young. I don't think maybe he was like 18 months old, somewhere around there, which was maybe a bit older than that, but it was quite spectacular to sort of see. So it just goes to show how powerful these animals are and how they can just take anything if they really want it. It's quite crazy. We've seen lots of animals with injuries today. This is normal though. I can only imagine with the lives that they live, with the vegetation that has all these prickles and thorns and spines on them. And then of course the predators or injuries inflicted by members of the same species, like what we typically see with a zebra. I also don't understand how more of these animals don't get bruised heels, from running and then standing on rocks. Even though their hooves are protected, they can still do some damage. You see that a lot with domestic horses. If they are working or just running in a paddock and they step on something, they can end up bruising their heels, which will make them a bit lame. But you don't really see that many animals with limps. I mean, of course, occasionally. But if you think about it, also animals just charging off with the amount of unlevel ground. Oh, they don't hurt themselves more. Blows my mind. I can't even run in a straight line without rolling my ankle. Okie dokie. Sorry, we seem to be having some technical difficulties here. Let's go to Namibia, Okukuyo. Quite quiet this morning. Just a few springbuck. It looks like there's one kudu on the other side, but not much happening at all. Still hoping to get a black rhino to come down and have a drink. That would really, really make my day or week, but we can just keep hoping. Yeah, you can see the springbuck all going in for a drink. A few blacksmith lapwings also around the water's edge all the time. It looks like there's some fresher deposits of black rhino dung. As you can see, obviously, the longer it sits in the sun and sort of dries out, it's going to go a much lighter color. But it seems like the black rhino typically come and drink here in the early evenings. The zebra is gulping down water at the moment. Not the zebra. Why did I say that? I'm looking at springbuck. Why do I have to say zebras? I don't know what's wrong with my brain. That blacks him a flat for me for he's just shouting at all the springbuck coming down to have a drink. Maybe they're nesting close by. Catherine, this is a great idea. We have to speak to the powers that be and beg. But doing a night at the Waterhole would be a lot of fun for sure. That would actually be really cool, especially at the Oldonyo Cam. And I think actually they could all be potentially quite interesting. I'd like to see Jamala. I would like to do Oldonyo, and I think Okakuyo would be quite a good one too. But personally, I think Oldonyo is the best. It has so much variety of animals coming down to drink at the various times. Oops, the gremlins are getting us. Let's go across and have a look at a bird somewhere. Yay! Cow Lodge. Also one of my favorite places, especially during the day. You have a red knob coot, cleaning its feathers. Just planning on one leg. Yeah, it looks like it. There's one of its teeth tucked up underneath its belly. Also, somebody doing a bit of renovations in the background. It's just quite a nice angle. You can really see why it is called a red-knobbed coot. But they are easily distinguishable compared to the common moorhen. because these red-knobbed coots, they've obviously got the very, very white facial skin and quite a light-colored beak. And then if you're close enough, you can have a look and see those red knobs. They also don't have white on the flanks of their or on the flanks of their body where the feathers are, where you see that with the common moorhens too. Easy to get confused if you don't know those differences because they're both black swimming birds. Lack of a proper description. Oh, what have we got there down below? Is it as what have we got? It's we might be able to see it quite nicely. I'm just looking at it. Quite a light uniform underbelly. In the back is a little sandpiper or a green shank or something. But I'll wait till we get a close look. Just below the common moorhen, not the common moorhen, the coot. Yeah, now this is where it can get quite tricky. You need to look there. Does it have a prominent white eyebrow or supercilium? It does indeed. And can you see that white that extends, sort of, I suppose, where if you imagine where the shoulder of the bird is, obviously the shoulder is internal. That should definitely help us. Those are two really great identifying features. Can't really see the color of the legs though, but they look fairly light. They're probably yellow. And does it have a black streak from its eye extending backwards to its eye, which it looks like it does? So I would go with a common sandpiper here. Let me know what you think in the comments. But that's that white just between the breast and where the bird's shoulder is, where the wing meets, is quite common to see on a common sandpiper. We'll see if you agree with me or not. This coot is just standing on one leg now, just resting it slightly. Imagine if we as humans did that. We just lift one leg up. Also, by lifting a leg up like that, they've obviously got no feathers down to their toes, so that skin is exposed and can be vulnerable to heat loss. So tucking it up under the feathers helps with heat. Oh, this is a much nicer, closer look. Is it the same individual? This looks like something a little bit different. See, this one looks a lot more like a wood sandpiper. A slightly darker legs, very mottled back up onto its head, but no big dark stripe extending from behind the eye. It does have that supercilium, which I always find wading birds to be quite difficult to identify. You don't really get in that. You might notice the gremlins are hitting us hard today, but we shall persevere. beautiful male lion. No, come back. I want to just come here to have a drink. I wonder where we are. Are we perhaps in Olifants West somewhere? In a place called Kwamaratani, which I have absolutely no idea where that is, to be quite honest. Ah, quick glimpse. You see how he's changed direction. He's just walked left. Let's see. Are there other lions here? No, just one individual coming down to drink. Maybe it's good to keep an eye out here. Perhaps, I'm just throwing it out here. I mean, it just might be one lion coming down to have a drink. But maybe a crowd of lions nearby have made a kill, or even just that male made a kill. Because for them to come out and have a drink during the middle of the day, not necessarily something that they do all the time. But I have seen them quite often getting up from kills and then coming to drink at this time. Sorry, I just have an echo in my ear at the moment. I can hear myself speaking. I've just received some information. This is in Pilanesberg National Park, which is not too far away from Johannesburg. And apparently there are 3 cubs with this pride, which is wonderful. So maybe they are just nearby. Maybe they have just eaten something. I suppose only time will tell if we see some more individuals coming through to have a drink, and we can look at the size of their bellies, although you don't always notice a huge difference, especially if it was just a mouthful of food because they caught something quite small. I've never actually been to the Pilanesberg before. It's a place I'd like to go. Also another destination great for brown hyena sightings. Have any of you that are watching? Oh, and then I just got some more information that apparently they were here earlier this morning. So that's great. That, I think, for me is starting to confirm that perhaps they've had a meal around here. And then, yeah, now they just moved off into the shade. But the vegetation is quite dense here, so it's a bit difficult to see. At the back, I can't believe, though, in one morning now we've had 2 predators, and for I don't know how many weeks we haven't, or at least I haven't seen any predators at all. So hyena and lion, I'm pretty happy with that. Although brief sightings, still really epic.
On Woodbury Lodge's episode of Destination Safari.
I'm so used to views I forget to mention it sometimes. Underfloor heating in the bathrooms, air conditioning, all those luxury items.
Dinner is a full 3-course meal, starter, main and dessert.
Early morning drive, and on that drive you might see some slightly different things, some rare things.
Destination Safari, bringing luxury safari travel to the world.
all climbing out now. Not interested in that bull. He kind of just shoved his way through there wanting the water. Come on, cows. Don't let him boss you. Look at the size different now, especially in comparison to his head. Not that these cows look that big. Some of the biggest elephant cows I've ever seen have been in Kenya around the Masai Mara and in Kruger too. I've seen a few individuals that were enormous. There don't seem to be very many females that get to, again, just trying to guess the weight of them. But gosh, some of those females must have been just under 5 tons, maybe even closer to it. Sounds pretty crazy, but phew, huge individuals. It's amazing how they just stand here for ages, just drinking so peacefully. You were laughing at me, wondering if I've muted myself again. I've been so good at doing that. Obviously, when I'm shuffling around because I can't sit still, I tend to mute myself so that you don't hear it. Have any of you ever seen really big elephant bulls at Madikwe? Just from the cameras that we've been looking at, I haven't specifically.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to capture a snapshot of wildlife in its magnificence? Our naturalist, James Henry, has spent his life creating memories through the lens, and he wants to share them with you.
From the sublime to the ridiculous, everybody.
Join James for a photography hangout where he will entertain you with safari stories through some of his best photographs and color grade them live. Come along for the fun. Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
Okay, here's a question from Steve D. You said, apart from obvious predators, which animals, if any, would elephants consider equal to them in waterhole hierarchy? Ooh, even with predators around, Steve, the elephants won't tolerate most of them. So they'd most likely chase away cheetah, including lions and leopard. And I think if there was one hyena around that even came to drink, now depending on which side of the waterhole it would drink, but if it came anywhere near these elephants, they would chase it quite off. The animals that we have seen, I suppose, in terms of hierarchy around a waterhole, maybe giraffe, just because we've had those very peaceful interactions with elephants and giraffe around the Aldonio waterhole. But I can't really say from personal experience I've seen elephants really chasing adult giraffe around. So maybe they have an agreement of some kind. I also just think it depends on the area. But elephants are notorious for chasing animals away. Sometimes you, of course, see big herds of buffalo coming down to drink too, or the odd bull buffalo just, sitting around in the mud, not really reacting too much to the elephants. They could be there. And then hippos in water. But again, it depends on the size of the pool of water. If there's enough space, then the hippos and elephants won't mind one another. But if it's a drying up pan, there most certainly will be some aggression towards the elephants from the hippos, and potentially vice versa. Maybe the elephants also try and push them around, but I haven't particularly seen that. I've seen elephants chasing hippos on land before, but not so much in the water. I think the hippos will just kind of get out of the way if possible. Madikwe is an amazing reserve. Again, it's also one of the places I'd like to visit. It reminds me a lot of Mashatu, which is in Botswana. It's not too far away from where Madikwe is. So most of these animals that we're looking at have been reintroduced. And from my understanding, the reintroduction of all these animals was done way back in 1991. I wasn't even born yet. Can you believe it? Okay, I was born in the next year. But that would have ranged from elephants to rhinos to giraffe to you name it. Probably not something like baboons or warthogs, and a couple of obviously maybe kudu, that type of thing. Maybe they brought some more kudu in, but they do occur in those areas naturally. But a lot of the larger species of animals, and I would imagine that would have got their elephants from the Kruger National Park. They at one stage were sending out loads and loads of elephants. And in fact, you could, if you just paid for the transport and the vet bills that it would require to move elephants, the Kruger was giving them away for free, just to help lower the populations. And then we've spoken about this quite a bit, but they're going to constantly have to change up genetics. So the easiest way to change up the genetics with the elephants is to actually just reintroduce bulls. Maybe take some younger bulls off and send them elsewhere, and then bring in a couple more big dominant breeding bulls. It's actually important to have rather large elephant bulls just to keep these youngsters in check. Otherwise, you can have a disaster like what happened all those years ago in the Pilanesberg with the elephants jumping onto rhinos' backs and trying to sort of mount them. There was no bulls there to suppress that and those younger bulls from coming into must too early, and it caused all sorts of problems. Thankfully, that has since been resolved. Milo, yeah, I suppose animals could be affected by the noise pollution. You've mentioned, for example, the construction. I think it'd take them a little bit of time to kind of get used to those sounds, but there seems to be so much work that's being done on Madikwe that they are quite accustomed to it. Not necessarily that they enjoy it, but they're just sort of used to it. That loud sound doesn't mean danger to them. It's not like somebody ran out chasing them with a drill or an electric saw, making those horrible noises. Then elephants would associate those sounds with danger. There's actually a really interesting study that's being done by Dr. Joyce Poole. She's got a organization called Elephant Voices, but she's studying lots of different things. Actually, between her and Cynthia Moss, they first described must in elephants, but she talks about the study that was done between certain tribes in Kenya, and specifically the Maasai and a couple of other different tribes, where the Maasai obviously being warriors and protectors, and unfortunately they do spear and historically have speared a lot of wildlife. Elephants, of course, cause big problems. They can crop raid. Again, they don't cause big problems, they cause inconveniences to us as humans. Sorry, I should have worded that slightly better. And then elephants will get speared quite often. So this whole study basically just shows how they were able to, whether it's scent or whether it is whether it's scent or being able to understand the different accents, they're not quite sure, but they were able to pick up the differences between the various tribes and their behavior when they heard either the Maasai language, or obviously we as humans, as individuals, we give off different scents, whether it was a scent, but when they were anywhere near in their presence, their behavior became a lot more protective and they were quite agitated. So I thought that is quite a fascinating thing. So as long they can hear all sorts of noises, and as long as it's not affecting them like negatively in a physical manner, then they'll typically be accustomed to it. There'll be some animals that will be more nervous and will just avoid it completely. But because humans have been interacting with wildlife, and probably a lot of these individuals, they just realize that we're not a threat. We're not hunting them in these protected reserves. They kind of just coexist. We coexist with them, which is the best possible thing to do. It does seem to be like there is a lot of construction going on at all the different camera sites, but it's important for these lodges to be able to maintain the infrastructure. A lot of soft refurbs, I'm sure, going on. Imagine having wood anything out in these harsh conditions where it rains a lot, but then it's also very dry and hot. They have to replace deckings. Um, Maybe there's termites that have got into various wood, or depending, I suppose, on what each lodge is made out of. But it's quite a regular thing. Some elephants on the right rolling around in the mud. Maybe we can have a look at them. Looks like two youngsters, one slightly larger individual. Okay, elephants all round. We had a similar thing yesterday. Let's go to Juma and see those elephants. Wow, look how many there are streaming in. Sure, this is a big herd of elephants. Sorry if you hear some drilling. It's not, there's no construction at Juma. I just can't get away from the sound. It's not very often that we get to see these big herds of elephants in the Sabi Sand. Of course we do, but like I haven't seen one in ages. I don't know where they're going to go down for a drink. Heading towards a small little pan that is pumped. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them of you. Just go down to the main waterhole. You're not all going to be able to have a drink around that small area. Jivani, you're quite correct saying it's amazing how the young elephants stay safe under those adults. They're obviously quite relaxed. Oh, there's a bit of drama going on in that little pan itself. I wonder why. What's going on in there? Why have some of you reacted that way? Ooh. You've got one cow chasing another. Oh my goodness, all chaos has just erupted. I think if we can maybe just turn the volume up here a little bit so we can hear the sound, that would be awesome. Quite interesting behavior. I didn't quite see what happened, but it looked like one of the cows was not impressed with another individual. I was surprised to see it looked like a younger, or maybe not even younger, a smaller cow chasing an older one. I don't know if you all agree with me if that's what you saw. To see with this camera being placed a lot higher, it sometimes can be a bit tricky to see. Still not completely relaxed just yet though. What are you going to go do, little one? Got its head raised. Smelling that individual that's coming down to drink. That trunk is working overtime. And there we go. Now they all seem to be heading back to have a...
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of Sunset Safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
has done a good job at spraying mud over herself, but you can see sort of how the hairs are catching the light. And from a distance, they look so smooth. But by having those bristles all over their body, their skin is also still quite sensitive. So they can feel things that potentially land on them. It's not like they've just got this super thick hide and that they're not able to pick up on anything. And when elephants are younger, they're very hairy. I'm sure that's to just help them regulate their body temperatures and just keep them a bit on the warm side. Oh my goodness, look how cool that is. All the hair around the ears. And it's important for them to have lots of hair around the ears, just as it is to have eyelashes. Will help keep unnecessary debris out of their ears and also unwanted bugs. You can see there is some green vegetation growing at the base of that tree. Doesn't look like it's been touched much. There are a few more trumpeting in the distance. There's so many elephants that have all come down at once. So Phil from Brighton, another great question. Thank you for all of these thought-provoking questions. You asked, how do animals with skin like elephants and hippo avoid skin cancer? So with hippos, they have obviously spent a lot of time in water to help keep them moist and cool, but they secrete a oily secretion, which we call hipposudoric acid. And in that secretion, it actually has a mild sunscreen, also some kind of antibacterial properties. So that's how they'll help them. Elephants, on the other hand, don't have anything like that. They've obviously got much thicker skin than hippos. They also cover themselves in mud, which will add an extra layer of protection. But something else that's interesting with elephants is they have so there's a gene called TP53, and that's also known as the guardian of the genomes. So some obviously a lot of other animals have it. We have it as humans too, but we as humans only have one. So because elephants have so many of them, it helps them to detect any damage that's done to the DNA. And they have suggested that they are less likely to grow tumors or develop cancer. And so that's another example of how elephants are able to protect themselves from something like skin cancer. Also because they're quite dark in coloration, that's going to happen. For example, something like myself, I'm quite pasty, so I've got to be really careful, and I'm in the sun all the time because I've obviously got a much thinner skin, but I've also got more chance of developing something like skin cancer. So Maybe if you have an animal with a lot of pigmentation, it doesn't have hair covering a majority of its body, then something like that could happen. But honestly, I can't say I've ever read about animals and skin cancer. I just, what sort of comes to mind with me is like horses, for an example, or cats, or dogs that have got a lack of sort of melanin, let's call it that, in sort of patches. I remember I had a gray horse, and he had a very light muzzle, so I had to put sunscreen on his muzzle every single day just so that he didn't get sunburned. But I can't say that I've ever read about something that I'm definitely going to have to look into further. This is quite the scene with so many elephants. I'm glad that they decided to go and have a drink. I was worried that we're only going to get to see them drinking around that small pool of water. But this is amazing. Again, I'm wondering if we can just turn the volume up a little bit, the audio. Because they are trumpeting. We should be able to hear the water splashing. go. All the vocalizations, are they just those trumpets are echoing? Hear all the splashing. I do apologize from the drilling on my side. I'm just finishing up a fence. Well, I'm not. Almost done. 2 poles away. And of course, these are all just very, some of them sound like excited trumpeting. Others maybe individuals getting annoyed with one another. There's even some more elephants coming through now. I do think that there is more than one herd here at the moment. We had the main. Oh, hello. I don't know what disturbed the elephant to the right. Isn't it great to see them all swimming like that? Pushing and shoving one another. Shirav, you've commented on the elephant swimming and you said it's fantastic. You know, it's moments like this where I truly wish I was here, but this is as good as we're going to get, right? I mean, the elephants are so excited to get into the water. Look at them charging towards it. Woohoo! Having the best time. Oh, here comes a big bull on the right. Let's see what trouble he's going to cause amongst all the cows and their little ones, just going over to greet each female. Also have a little test. Maybe he's lucky and one of them or two of them are boosters. But it's quite exceptional when elephant bulls do pick up on the scent, because that scent can travel quite far, and obviously when cows will urinate and defecate, they will also follow that trail. In the water, and then it's like they just run straight across to the other side. Oh no, they're floating again, or trying to float at least. Geraldine, this is a cool question you've asked. Do elephants have a specific greeting, kind of like hyenas do? No, not quite the same. Um, so when you get I mean, obviously they're living in herds together, and typically the females are either closely related or they have strong social bonds. So there's not the same hierarchy that you see with hyenas, which is a lot more advanced and complicated. But because most of the elephants here are going to be on the same page, in and amongst the herd, you're not going to see that very often. But where you will see it is with bulls coming up to breeding herds, and then two different family groups meeting one another, whether they're just passing each other through the bushes, but more likely it's something like a waterhole like this. Um, because elephants are so intelligent, they are able to uh, identify many individuals. So if they have a good relationship with, I suppose, members of a specific herd and they happen to meet up, the interactions won't typically be as not so aggressive, but show so much animosity between them. They'll be a lot more tolerant of one another. Uh, so yeah, you'll see them. They might come at each other with their ears flared, but then typically they'll have they'll put their trunks in each other's mouths. That's a way of greeting. And then yesterday I was speaking about how when individuals of the same herd will do that, it could also just be reassuring them, but slightly different. And this bull now is just taking a moment just to relax, interested in something on the ground. Some of those elephants have now moved off. They've finished swimming. You could see earlier they were having dust baths. I suppose even in a big water hole like this, they'll still take turns. One on the left diving straight into the water. So he's obviously had a swim already, this big bull. Didn't see him come out of the water. Maybe he was on the other side of the dam. Felt okay, I agree with you. I think that these elephants are having a spring pool party. I would also like to be there. I'd like to be, I mean, obviously sitting in the vehicle is the safest, but can you imagine being on a bushwalk and then stumbling across this? Well, I say this, but actually I think it would be quite chaotic because there were elephants coming from all directions. So it'd be like, where do you sit? Where do you watch from a safe distance without disturbing them, or without having a herd stumble across you, which obviously you don't necessarily want. But the view from the lodge, but sadly the Juma lodges are not commercial anymore, so it's kind of just used for private use. But at Voyatella Lodge, the deck is quite beautiful, and you have a great view. But in terms of where this camera is positioned, it's got the best spot. It will be so loud though, sitting with these elephants, slapping their trunks everywhere.
Not everyone gets excited to hear a leopard chuff, spot a pangolin, or see a real impala rut. But if you are wild about the wild, you can become part of a community of like-minded nature lovers and share authentic wildlife experiences with the world. Join the Explorers Club and you will also enjoy the many benefits that come with it too. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Now you can see how the knobthorn is casting a bit of a shadow onto this elephant. And actually around the dam, there's not many big trees, not so much on this side where the camera is. And it obviously it also depends on the where the sun is. And that can definitely affect as well. So just taking a moment to rest, not actually interested in any of the breeding herds. Oh, it seems as though the tallest of them all are back having a drink at Old Donyo. Since the elephants have moved off, so will we. Ah, wow. Look at this view. An entanglement of giraffe. Well, not quite an entanglement, but it looks like it. With the way they're all standing in and amongst one another. You can see here, look, the zebras. They don't mind so much. Come on, giraffe, have a drink. So they seem to be all placid with one another. These giraffe just look in such great condition. Like, you don't see that big of a tick build up. Maybe we can have a closer look in between their legs, especially with this one that's got its rump towards us, because that's where we're going to see a lot of ticks. They also don't have many injuries. Again, we're just looking at a small percentage of the giraffe that occur in this area. This is quite a cool view. Okay, Nice view of the giraffe, but we don't have much time left. Let's go over to Naledi, and more elephants are coming down to drink. There we go. Well, I suppose not elephants, but rather one young bull. I think he's going to go off to the left now. Cover. Oh, never mind. I take that back. There's another bull. They're going to splash themselves with that lovely green water. Doesn't that look great? And look at all the nice green grass growing in the middle of the dam. I'd definitely be in there taking trunkfuls. These are a couple of helmeted guinea fowl just resting in the shade behind the elephants. Actually looks like the reservoir was filled up since yesterday. It wasn't as deep. Des, you've wondered if elephants will ever accept other individuals from the outside, specifically females, into the herds. I suppose they could. I don't think it happens very often. Like I said, of course, females are typically closely related, or associations. But it's not impossible for something like that to happen. I think it really is going to depend on the situation. Yeah, he's having a good splash now. But what we see with obviously the young males, they're a lot more receptive. They don't quite form herds, but they do form. They do have social bondings, and their favorite individuals are other bulls that they will hang around with. As long as they behave, then they'll be tolerated. And tail's still swishing so vigorously. Just elephant on the left, just fiddling around in the mud. I'm not sure if it's trying to loosen some of the mud up at the bottom. Sorry, please excuse my dog barking in the background. One having a big drink, and then the other one, he's fiddling down there. You can see there's lots of bubbles popping up, so I think also blowing or expelling air from his trunk. And there we go. Got a bit of mud. I mean, that water, of course, is great to toss over themselves, but if you really want added protection, grabbing the mud is going to be best.
Discover the wonders of the wild with Safari Snaps, Africam's fun community game. While enjoying the live streams, simply tag the animal you spot. Each tag earns you points based on the rarity of the species. The rarer, the more points you score. Your profile and the Safari Snaps leaderboard will keep track of your impressive tagging skills. Join us on Safari Snaps and let's celebrate the wonders of African wildlife together.
Oh, I was getting so excited about those guinea fowl that had come down to drink. And then the elephant was not very happy with them. I mean, that's completely unnecessary. The size of a guinea fowl to an elephant is rather significant. So I suppose he's just stroking his ego slightly. Big shake of the ears. And it's not very deep, this waterhole. And up he goes. Oh, that's also not particularly steep. You're very dramatic. And now just resting his trunk over his tusks. I would do that all the time. I'd never have my trunk dangling. Just taking a moment before moving off. You can see so many of the flowers on the trees now, and some greenery popping through, but most of the new green leaves on the trees haven't started. I actually wonder, has anybody seen any flowers on the weeping boer beans? the scotias. Normally at this time of the year, they've got a burst of bright red flowers. One of my favourite scotia tree at Leopard Dam on Pridelands that I used to spend a lot of time with at this time of the year. The knobthorns actually started blooming quite early. I suppose they did the same thing last year. And those are those trees that you can just see in the distance. It's so funny, they all walked out the same way. Yesterday we had a small breeding herd of elephants literally follow that same pathway. Where are you heading to next? There's a little scratch around the ears. Perfect timing. Bye, elephant. Enjoy your day. Let's go check out Jamala, where the elephants are seen to be staying. Oh my goodness, even more of them. I don't know if it's the same group that we saw earlier. I think they probably would have moved off. But an abundance of other elephants. All just taking their time, waiting for their turn. Some more warthogs, the odd zebra. Although if I was a warthog, I don't know if I'd want to come and drink now, unless you're escaping to the other side. Doesn't seem like too many of the other animals want to drink with the elephants around here. I think that's quite daunting. Oh, there's like a cow chasing away another individual. We see this quite often happening, especially cows acting aggressively towards young bulls. Oh, shame. Look at that little elephant all the way in the mud there, just in the center. He's sliding along. Careful not to get in too deep, although if a young elephant were to get stuck in the mud, you can absolutely be assured that the other elephants will try and get it out. Sadly, sometimes they don't succeed. I imagine they'd be able to be okay here. There we go, another elephant being chased off by an older bull. There's just a lot going on at the moment, so my anxiety would be through the roof, and I'd be behaving like some of these other elephants, sort of just been like, get out of my space. I want to drink in peace. But it's been great. We've actually had another day filled with elephants. I can't believe we briefly saw a male lion, which was really awesome in the Pilansberg. And then seeing that hyena, although quite sad to see it in that condition, especially because it's been in this condition for quite a long time. But from what I read in the comments, that hyena is getting better. But thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you're able to join me again tomorrow. But remember to watch the sunset safari, which will be in a couple of hours' time. I'll see you soon. Bye.